Hey bosses, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jevaux. I'm a real estate agent and developer here in South Florida, and I also worked as an investment manager for 15 years. And today I want to show you one of the operations that my client did where we purchased a house, he started operating in Airbnb and made $175,000 in 1 year. Hey bosses, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jevaux and this is Show Me the Money. And I've said here several times that investing in a property for Airbnb, especially here in South Florida, is very lucrative. Actually, this is a very nice way to start investing in real estate because your risk is very small. And the risk is very small because if the Airbnb operation doesn't go well, you can always rent on a yearly basis. But usually you can find great investments in any kind of area, including where you don't think it's a tourist destination, and you still make a lot of money. And that's what my client did. Just a little bit more than a year ago, my client called me and said, Daniel, I want to buy a property to put on Airbnb. Can you help me? Yes. So we did what everybody started doing in the first place. We start looking for properties in areas that were tourist driven, that in our mind were tourist driven, next to the beach, next to shopping malls, areas that we knew a lot of tourists would like to go. But the problem is that, especially here in South Florida, that those areas, the properties are too expensive. And even though Airbnb can be a good thing, my client was going to buy this property with 95% finance. So the operation need to pay for the house. And that's what he did. He took a lot of risk because he put a small down payment, but in the end, everything went well. When we started looking for properties, we saw some nasty properties that even with a rehab, we didn't think that we could get the money back for my investor, or at least pay the property itself. So we start looking at other areas just a little bit more distant of those areas that we thought could be the best ones, and we found some properties that were very good. In the end, my client bought a house in Oakland Park, which is next to Fort Lauderdale here in South Florida, and for his positive surprise, the property went very, very, very well. And that's what I want to show you today in detail. So first, I'm going to show you how the operation was structured, how much he paid for, how much he got financed, how much his finance were back then. To start, I want to show you my client's closing disclosure, which is this. This shows everything that we need to know about his property, whatever the financials of his property is. On this file, we can see that the loan amount was just under $530,000. His interest rates were 2.99, and that's a year ago. Today, that's higher. His monthly payment of principal and interest were $2,231. And when you add the insurance and the mortgage for the property tax, the total monthly payment that he would pay would be $3,386 every single month. So when we were analyzing a property, we did those numbers before. We estimated those numbers before, and we were looking at data from Airbnb to see how much those properties were renting for and how much money we would get. And I'm going to show you the spreadsheet that I use to do those first calculations in a minute. But first, let's continue with his closing disclosure. For you that never saw a closing disclosure, it's a document that reflects all the financial side of your real estate property. When you're buying or you're selling, it shows the seller costs, the seller transactions, and the buyer's cost and buyer's transaction. In this document, we can see that my client purchased the house for $557,750. He had a total closing cost of almost $18,000, and he had an adjustment here paid by seller in advance of $61.31, and this is all the costs that he would have. So the total for his property was $575,000. So 557 for the property, plus closing costs, plus a compensation for the seller that had paid some items in advance. And here shows his side. So he made a $5,000 deposit. He got a loan for $529,000. He got a seller contribution. That was a very good negotiation, which has been hard in the last year. But I believe now that the market is softening a little bit, we are going to see that more, which is having the seller contributing for the closing costs. So my client we got for him a seller contribution of $16,732, and also other adjustments for items unpaid by seller, county taxes, $3,475. This is basically my client is getting a credit for the property tax. This is how it works here in South Florida. The property tax is charged from the owner of the house in November of each year of the past year. So in November of 2022, they need to pay the property tax for that year, 2022. They have until March of 2023 to pay. So what happens is we pay the property taxes on their year. So when someone sells the house, they need to pay the seller or contribute to the seller with the prorated period of property tax that he occupied that house during that year. So in this case, the closing was in August 17. So from January 1st to August 17, the property tax are due by the seller. So they give a credit of that amount to the buyer, because the buyer at the end of the year is going to pay for everything. So need to get that from the seller. So the total amount due by the buyer was $575, with the deposit that he made, with the credit that he got from the seller, with the loan, and with the credit from the buyer for $3,400 for the property tax. He had a payment of $555. So he came with another $20,000 at closing. So he made a deposit of $5,000, and at closing he had to come with another $20,000. So that's how much he put in cash for that property, $25,000, to purchase a $575 total cost property, or a property with the value of $557. He only put $25,000. So everybody that is thinking that you need a lot of money to invest in real estate, you don't. You just need to have a good credit, and you can get a great loan like my client got, with 90% loan, 95%, just over 95% loan to value. He got a lot of money from the bank to purchase his property. Daniel, if I don't have a good credit, you can go to a private lender. They are going to lend you a little bit less. They're going to charge you a little bit more. But in the end, you can buy a property with the money that you have or that you can acquire from a lender. And if you don't get from a private lender, you can also get from your friends, your family. You can make an agreement with them that you are going to pay off in X amount of time. There's several ways that you can use other people's money to invest in real estate. If you would like to know more about how to use other people's money to invest in real estate, make a comment below, and we are going to do a video only about that. So now, coming back to our property, this is the closing disclosure. You saw that my client, for a property that costs, that was the sales price was $557,000. The total cost for that property was $575,000, and the valuation or the numbers that we had to run to make sure that this property was feasible, I used this spreadsheet, which I'm going to link in the description so people can also download this spreadsheet and make their own simulations about properties that they want to invest in real estate. So let's take a look on this. On this spreadsheet here on the left, we have the total estimated monthly payment. We have the purchase price, the loan amount, the loan to value, how much they put down. In this case, my client put 25% down. And my client also, to make this rentable on Airbnb, he invested about $10,000 in furniture and modifications to the house. So in the end, his total cost was $585. He got a loan, he got a credit, the seller's finance, and he put down $35,000, $25,000 at closing, plus the $10,000 for the modifications. He had a 2.99 interest rate in 30 years. His monthly payment $2,231, plus the insurance, plus the property tax. In this particular case, my client was renting the house for $240 per day. That was his average daily rate in the last 12 months. Some months he would charge more, some months in the low season he would charge less, but the average was $240. His occupancy rate in Oakland Park, Florida, which doesn't have a beach, is not a destination, is close to places that have everything that you need, but is not the actual destination. He got 87% occupancy rate. So that's a very good occupancy rate. So his monthly revenue was about $6,264, which is 240 times 30 days of the month times 87%, which is his occupancy rate. And he told me that, Daniel, I don't have 100% occupancy rate because every time someone get out, I leave 1 day so I can do the cleaning. If I need to change anything, I have 1 day to do it without getting desperate to make it happen, because in Airbnb, your reviews will dictate how good your investment is going to be. So from those $6,200, he always would get would separate about 4% for monthly reserves, maintenance reserves, if he had to change anything or something was broken and was not covered by the insurance, which is a great thing, because you can see that I don't have here almost any expense, because everything is paid by the tenant. The tenant is paying for the cleaning. If anything breaks, the tenant is paying for the replacements of the items that they broke. So coming back here, his revenue was $6,000 at the end when he separated the money for the maintenance. Airbnb gets a fee of 3% of everything that you make. So his net revenue was $5,800 per month, every single month, in average. Here is in average. So his monthly payment was $3,300. He ended up every month with $2,446, which is very nice, because first he bought the house that he's living in, and then he bought investment property. And with this investment property, as you can see, making $5,800 per month, where his monthly payment for this property is $3,300. The house was basically paying for itself, and the balance of this payment of this house was covering almost 100% of the mortgage of the house that he lives. That's what I say to people. If I was in his place, and I told him that, but everybody makes their own decision based on what they feel more secure. I would first have bought this house, the house that makes you money. And with that money that I'm generating, I would buy the house that I want to live in, because now I'm going to live for free, because my assets that I don't need to work for them, just as you go for a job, is paying my expenses. And you could use the same thing to pay for your rent or whatever. But in my mind, I prefer to have money first and debt later, expenses later. So the net result for this property was $2,400 per month. When we compare how much money he was making per month, $2,446, with the amount of money that he put down, which is $35,000, he is making 6.85% per month. It's not per year, it's per month in average. Some months he can do more because he charges more. Some months he will do less because he charges less. But throughout 12 months, that was his average. And on this spreadsheet that I use, I also have this little chart here, which is a sensitivity analysis, where I can play with the daily rate on one side, on this side, and also the occupancy rate on this side, and this is what we get. With $240 per day at a 87% occupancy rate, which is the occupancy rate that he's getting, the result is 6.85% per month. Let's go to our worst estimated scenario, where the daily rate is $192 from $240 to $192, so we dropped a lot, and the occupancy rate now is 67%, not 87, but 67. Still, in this scenario, the return would be 0.5% per month, 0.6% per month, which would be more or less between 6 and 7% per year. We're still going to be able to pay out your mortgage and would return for you a little bit, because this is the net result. I'm calculating the net result, so everything that is left after you pay your mortgage. So actually the result at 67% occupancy rate and $192 is much higher if I compare the net revenue. But in this case, I'm discounting already the mortgage payments, and I'm only calculating the free cash flow, the money that comes into your pocket. So you're paying your property. In the worst case scenario, you're paying your property and you're still getting between 6 and 7% per year. Let's say if he would go to $288 and a 100% occupancy rate, which is virtually impossible. So let's take a look on 97% occupancy rate. He would be making 12% per month. That's not Ponzi scheme. That's not cryptocurrency. That's real estate. If people say that real estate is not a good investment, if people say that real estate gets low return, they don't know what they're talking about. They only know one thing: buying real estate and sitting on it for 400 years. This is the example of my client. He bought a property with a total cost of $585, put down 35,000, rented on Airbnb, and now is making almost 7% per year. I did another thing to my client. When he completed 1 year from his purchase, I ran a CMA, a comparable market analysis, to see how much his house would worth today. This is what I found. In his area, or around his area, there were 5 sales in the last 6 months, and I'm not even comparing the last 12, I'm just comparing the last 6 months. The average price was $684. He bought for $575 or $557. The average price per square foot was $470. The lowest price was $500, and the highest price was $780. And the average days on market was 85 days. And what I do now is I get the $470 per square foot, and I multiply by the square footage of his house, and let's see how much money he made. His house has 1,564 square foot. So 1,564 times 470. His house worth now $735,000 if he wants to sell it now. Let's run this. What would happen if he would sell his house today? How much money, or how much of a percentage he would return on his investment? In finance, we have an index called internal rate of return, which takes in consideration all the money that you put in a property or in an investment and all the money that you take out of that investment, considering the time. The $35,000 that I put on month 1 in time has a different value of the $2,500 that I'm going to get back from this investment in 12 months. So what the internal rate of return does is to adjust all the cash flow by the time that they were applied. Month 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so forth. So in this case, on month 0, on day 0, he had a $35,000 input. He took money out, $35,000. For 12 months, he received $2,440 as a net cash flow. And let's say that we sold his house today for $735,000 minus his realtor commission of 6%. He would net in the 12th month $174,000. And I'm also discounting the $518,000 that he still owns to the bank 12 months after. He paid for his mortgage during 12 months. Now he had a mortgage of $229,000. Now he has a mortgage of $518,000 because he paid for 12 months. So his net, the money that is going to come into his pocket after 12 months is $174,000. That is an average return of 17.9% per month, or 600%. Basically, my client 6x his investment after 12 months. And why he did it? Why he was able to 6x his investment after 12 months? Because he did the investment in the first place. I say that because a year ago or 2 years ago, I did a video in Portuguese for my fellow Brazilians saying that they should not wait because they are always waiting. Sometimes they are waiting for the elections in Brazil. Sometimes they are waiting for the elections in the United States. Sometimes they are waiting for the dollar to stop going up, and then they start waiting for the dollar going down, and they never make the investment. The only way you can win a game is being on it. So my against all odds, in the middle of COVID, or was not even in the middle of COVID, was August 2021. So the market was going up like crazy already, but he still decided to make the investment because he knew he was right, and he was. He made the investment, the property went up, and he made money every single month. Am I saying that the property is always going to go up the way that he did, the way that his property went? $150,000 more, $170,000 more? Of course not. But they will still go up 9%, 6%, 7%, 10%. And on this time, during that elevation of prices, you still are going to make money every single month. Even in 2007 and 8 and 9, when we had the crisis, people were still traveling. And by traveling, they need a place to stay. And when they need a place to stay, now Airbnb is much more easy to use than a hotel, or it was in 2007. If you are afraid of making investments because you don't know what's going to happen in the future, let me tell you something. Nobody knows. Everybody makes the speculations. The thing that I know is everybody that bought real estate prior to 2007 and 8 and 9 are now making a lot of money. They made a lot of money. Because crises, they are always going to come and they are always going to go. And if you try to catch the knife while the knife is falling, you're going to cut your hand. So the best way to invest is when you have the capacity to invest. It doesn't matter what everybody else is saying. If you believe in that investment, just make it. Don't